All right, welcome back again. Today we continue with our guest series. Today we have another special guest with a very long resume also, and her name is Christina Roberts. Christina Roberts is the head coach and founder of EnFlyte Endurance Coaching. Um, she comes with, well, as I said, a long resume, master's in sports psychology. She's also holds a master's in healthcare. She's a USA Triathlon Level 1 coach. She's a Level 1 also in Masters Swimming. She holds certifications in yoga for athletes, and she's also mental performance or works on mental performance for athletes. Mother of two, engaged, and that package comes with additional three, so a total of five in that bundle. Yeah, congratulations on that engagement. And
Thank you.
well, yes, in-flight coach Christina Roberts, thank you for being with us today.
Yes, thanks for having me. This is exciting.
Yes, I'm looking forward to this conversation. Well, as usual, as with all our previous podcasts, I always like to start with like your beginnings, right, in triathlon, and and then, well, we can move from there on our conversation. I do want to touch on the sports psychology and the yoga for athlete. Those we'll get there at one point, but let's get you going.
Yeah, that sounds good. So my start in triathlon, it was not that long ago. Actually, sometime in 2017, I did my first triathlon. It was a sprint, and I was being coached by someone who was a long distance runner and a long course triathlete. So, 140.6 distance. And he just gently nudged me towards a way of looking at running by incorporating swimming and biking as my cross training activities. And I didn't
Very
have,
gentle.
right? You see how that
Yes.
works? And,
Yeah.
I didn't belong to a pool. I swam a lot as a kid, but didn't, did not have a lot of experience swimming as an adult. And I certainly didn't have a bike or a trainer or, anything along those lines. And, slowly between he and, my soon to be husband just kind of peppered me with information and skill sets and the actual gear to do the things. It was this collective effort to get me to the starting line for my first triathlon. And I really enjoyed it and continued to challenge myself, not just within a specific, distance, but also adding, duration to the distance. So, sprint through doing my first Ironman last year.
Nice. Okay, tell us about that first sprint. How did it go? Uh, the gear choices, and then how did you feel? And how like how was that hook afterwards? Like, I mean, you're still in the sport after 7 years now, and
Yeah,
so
I guess that's the
yeah,
math. Yeah. Um,
yes,
so I was very nervous, just because it was new to me, the actual event and the logistics around it. Um, in training, you almost never have the opportunity to put all three disciplines together. Maybe every once in a blue moon, but I never had a day where I swam, transitioned to bike, transitioned to run, and called it a workout. And trying to understand how do I put those pieces together was a little overwhelming. And also, there was an impending storm coming. So there was a lot of
oh,
conversation during the expo around water quality, because it's in a river that is not the cleanest in the Philadelphia area. So there was a water quality issue and the possibility of it being canceled altogether. And I was more upset with not the quality of the water, but rather the swim having the potential of being canceled. Because
right.
in my mind, this is not a real triathlon if I can't do all three things. Um, but I really tried to stay calm and cool around not really knowing what was going to, come my way, and maybe being a newbie on the starting line had a benefit. The swim was actually delayed by, I think it was almost 3 hours.
Oh, wow.
And I remember standing in probably 6 inches of water during this amazing thunder and lightning storm that blew through. And
That's us triathletes. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and
Well,
I was like,
yes,
this
we'll
is
wait until the race starts. Yeah.
this is fun. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not taking my bike and going home. And it wound up being this really exciting, powerful time for me. I was doing more than just the one thing, which, I primarily came from, just running, and running long distances. This is really cool. I get to do 3 different things. I get to see all these amazing people. There are so many opportunities for improving and learning and resetting yourself. That was really intriguing to me. And I think that was the hook. It was really the putting the pieces together as the race unfolded.
So you felt well at the end. You
Yeah,
felt that you accomplished your goal,
I
right?
did.
And all right, great. So what was your next race afterwards? And like you said, okay, what made you decide, okay, this is good. I like this. I'm going for my next for the next thing.
If I remember how everything unfolded, I I think the following weekend I went up to Lake Placid, New York, just to camp and ride a little bit, and I was able to feel a little bit more like a real triathlete, because I mean, Lake Placid is incredibly iconic, and I had spectated the full in 2016. So I felt like I had a little bit more experience under my belt. Like, oh yeah, like I know what this triathlon thing is all about. I've done one myself. And I wound up signing up, I think, for 2 or 3 other very local, very backyard type triathlons. And I just really loved the community and the people, and being able to honestly express myself through movement in different ways. That's really what grabbed me.
Okay. So what distances did you move up to? So you started with a sprint. So those two next races.
So those 2 next races were also sprints.
Okay.
And one was and they were all in completely different bodies of water. So wound up doing a swim in a bay. I didn't really understand what brackish water meant until I got into it and realized, yikes, this is salty. And I did another triathlon in, just a little lake, and I graduated then, still with sprint distance. I did an ocean swim, which was remarkable. And I eventually did my one Olympic. I've done one Olympic, and then
Okay.
I moved up to 70.3s. One Olympic
Okay.
seemed for me to be the standard of I'm moving on to the
Graduation.
next
Yes.
distance. Yeah.
So, okay, tell us about brackish waters for those of us that don't know exactly what that is.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's a mix of, it's not completely salt water, but it's a mix of, fresher water and salt water. So it has like that salty edge to it.
Okay.
It's not as buoyant as, you would be going out into the ocean. But it was a surprise for me,
Huh.
because in my mind, I was swimming in lakes and in quarries. Fresh water has a different taste, a different sensation. And,
Yes.
that salty mix was just, it was
Interesting.
just shocking
Okay.
for me. Yeah.
New.
So
Yes.
read the athlete guide. That's a great
Yes.
takeaway. Understand
Yes.
where you're swimming and what you're literally getting into.
Funny that your first triathlon, your sprint in the middle of a storm, right? And it's like it made me think about Ironman California 3 years ago, and like I'm signed up. I live in Sacramento, and I'm signed up for Ironman California, and yeah, Jan Frodeno is here. Like, oh, we're racing.
Yes.
I'm racing. He's here. I'm doing this. and of course the storm is coming. Like it's all the forecast. It's like this is a atmospheric river. It's gonna be horrible. And everyone's in the transition area. There's buses already going to the starting line, and it's pouring.
Yeah.
And everyone's, I'm in my wetsuit, like hypothermic in my wetsuit with two caps on, my goggles on my hand, and like just waiting for the start. And then suddenly they announce like it's canceled. And but of course, like I wasn't at the swim start, and I hear the stories of the people that were at the swim start, that the river was going upstream instead of following its normal
Yeah.
course. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was. Yeah. So anyway, that like explains to you like some of us triathletes how we are. Like I could see people like leaving the venue
Yeah.
before anything was announced, and I was thinking to myself like I don't want to be that triathlete that didn't do the race, and the race what did go,
Yes,
did
absolutely.
happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so 70.3s now. That's
Yeah.
your next race. What was that next race? Which one did you
Well,
choose as a 70.3?
that's actually a really, really great question. I chose Ironman North Carolina 70.3. And I'm really struggling with years here. I think maybe it was 2019. So that year was pretty heavy triathlon for me. So my partner was training for Ironman Lake Placid, and I did an early season try, and then we went up to Lake Placid to ride. I did my first 50-mile ride up in Lake Placid. So again, like Lake Placid, iconic. I belong here. This is great. And there was a hurricane that was coming up the East Coast, and it looked like the area of Wilmington, North Carolina was going to be impacted. So probably a week and a half to maybe 3 weeks before the half was supposed to take place, the area, was hit by a hurricane, and it's kind of hard to get information out.
Don't
The
sign up for a race with Christina.
Apparently not. But I can coach you through it. So we
Yes.
it just turns out the entire area is devastated, and there's no possible way that, the course is going to be ready to welcome, all these, wonderful people into race. And, my first thought was, what a terrible thing for that area. And what am I going to do with all this training? This is my first, 70.3. And, at the time I didn't have a smart trainer. So I spent, my 70-mile rides on a dumb trainer. And
Yes. Not smart
we,
one. Yeah.
yes. So my fiance, John, and I, were, trying to figure out what makes sense, to shift. And there was a half distance, in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. It was the Tennessee Tough Man. And
Right.
so all of my training was focused on flat and heat acclimation.
Okay.
I live in Pennsylvania, so it's a little bit cooler in the September and October months. And I shifted to, a very hilly bike, an interesting, swim, and they had unseasonably cool weather at that time during the race, and it poured the entire time on the bike, and I had to go the day before and get rain gear, and it was cold. And you know what, those were the cards that I was dealt that
Yes.
day, and that was the game I played. So I didn't wish for a different hand. I didn't fold, I didn't tap out. I, just picked up those cards and figured out the best way to make it work.
So what was so you finished that one. You
I
made it
did.
happen. Yes. And you moved to the next race. So how many 70.3s do you have under your belt?
I think I have 5.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So do you feel like you're improving? Like, I mean, every
Mm.
terrain is different. Every race is different. So they're not comparable if you have a better time or not. But in terms of your performance, how are you feeling? Like,
You're
how are you finishing these races?
You're totally right. John and I have the same conversation all the time. A PR is not a PR from race venue to race venue. It's so hard to almost grapple with your time when there are so many variables. Even on the same course, they might change something.
Yes.
The weather
Yeah.
is going to be different. So it's really hard to rationalize it. But I am getting better. And it's not any one thing that or I should say, I'm not focused on changing all the things. So I know what my limiters are, and I try to prioritize those first. So cycling is not as much in my wheelhouse when I first started, as I feel a little bit more comfortable on the bike in general. My first triathlon, I didn't clip in. I was absolutely petrified. Absolutely not. No, I'm wearing sneakers and it's a
Yes.
faster transition to the run, and I don't need to clip in. And then, I eventually built some of those, techniques and skills to feel more comfortable clipping in, unclipping, etc. So yeah, I get better from a physical standpoint. And I think it's because I'm also smarter. I have a little bit more experience. I know most of what to expect, which is sometimes expecting the unexpected.
Right.
And I can be, I think, a little more dynamic with keeping my emotions at bay and going into a problem solving mode if I need to. And worry about the things that are in my control. I'm not going to worry as much about, rain on race day. It is what it is.
Right.
Everyone's getting rain on race day.
Right.
So what can I control? I can control, how I sight the buoys as best I can. I can control, limited decision making in transitions. I can control, how I handle my bike. So I think there's a lot of things, nutrition, huge thing.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot that I focus on that's within my control that I think makes me better. Are my times faster? I don't know.
Right.
It's really hard to tell. The courses are different, and I'm also not getting younger.
Right. Yeah. But it's what you're saying. It's all this experience now translates into probably not faster times, but I would say overall a better experience.
100%. It is a better
Yes.
experience. Yes. I want
Yes.
to keep doing this as long as my body allows me to keep doing this. And for me, having a not so great experience chips away at my body wanting to do this anymore. So if I can put more of my eggs in the I want to have a better experience bucket, I will be able to do this longer term.
Right. Right. Correct. And well, that brings us to your our next subject. That would be the yoga, right?
Yeah.
That you're incorporating into training, right? And that helps you with that longevity in the sport. And like, tell me about your yoga experience and how do you incorporate it, and is it part of your program with your athletes as well? I mean, are you racing this year? Let me start with that question and then jump back to the yoga.
Oh,
What's
good
your next
question.
event?
I
Yeah.
just raced, John and I both raced Happy Valley 70.3
Okay.
at the end of June. And I don't have anything on the calendar because our next endurance event is our
It's
wedding
the
and our
wedding.
honeymoon.
Nice.
So yeah,
Yes.
that's what we're training for. We're training for the wedding and
Okay.
the honeymoon.
Nice. Okay. So and then, well, let's talk about the yoga in your daily practice and as for your athletes, for your coached athletes.
Yeah, yoga is such an interesting topic. I think specifically for folks that are living, in America or even, North America, we're really focused on the physical aspect of things. So yoga is going to a class, yoga is rolling out a mat, yoga is, the aesthetic of I'm doing a pose, it's, whatever's on the cover of, Yoga International or Yoga Journal magazine, whatever. And for me, it's not always that. Yoga is rolling out a mat when you have a moment, doing a couple child's poses, maybe, a little cat cow just to loosen up. And that's a mindful period of time where I can be by myself with my breath And that to me is yoga. Um, how I can maybe interact with myself and reframe how I might, maybe subscribe to negative self-talk, like, oh, you're such an idiot, like you did this, dumb thing during your workout, or, you said the wrong thing on that meeting. But then reframing the, no, wait, let's just be a little gentle with ourselves, even though it's also sports psychology, it's
Yes.
yoga to me. So I think they kind of all weave together. But from a physical practice standpoint, I try to do a little bit of yoga every day. I agree that it definitely supports longevity, mental and physical, right? It's all about how
Yes.
you pair those two things together. The purpose behind yoga is the union of body and mind. It's not a
Yes.
separate thing. So the practice of yoga goes way beyond I can do a downward dog. Do my heels touch all the time? No. Is that discouraging for me? No, also no, because I know that the purpose isn't I need to get my heels on the ground. The purpose is I need to find peace within myself. And through movement, I am, kind of filling my bucket and getting peace that way. And
Right.
I'm
So
rambling
what's yeah, that's awesome. I just got back from my yoga class today.
now. Oh,
Before, just
cool.
before, yes, yeah, yeah. I'm doing yoga almost every day, and it's been actually let me throw this in. Soulfire is the one of the
Ooh,
sponsors of the show. So
cool. I heard
yes,
about it
yeah,
today, actually.
there you go. So they're one of the sponsors, and I've been working with them for almost a year, and I mean it's been magnificent. It's like I feel stronger.
Yes.
I There was a period at the beginning of this year that I wasn't training for health issues, and I just was focused on doing yoga. That was one of
Yeah.
the things that was recommended. I was probably a little more overcautious. um, I had an ablation. I was having AFib, and all
Wow.
the
Okay.
listeners
That's
of the show,
intense.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, I had the ablation, and anyway, one of the recommendations from the books is yoga and meditation.
Yes.
And yeah, I like took it as a triathlete intense that I am. Like I'm not swimming, biking, and running. I'm gonna do yoga every day instead.
Yeah.
So
I love it.
I took it by heart and literally, and um, yeah. So I've been doing this for all this year, and it's like, amazing. Like you get stronger, you work on balance, you work on this mental aspect of
Yes.
that of the practice, and like you develop all these abilities now, and you feel that um triathlon being again a linear sport, right? We're
Yes.
always going forward. We go forward on the swim, we go forward on the bike, we go forward on the run, a lot of repetitive stress.
Yeah.
So how do we loosen up our limbs and our joints, and make sure that we unload our spine from all the pounding, and not just the spine, but all the joints that get pounded by all the running? Well, I guess a little bit of mobility that it's
Yeah.
introduced in yoga is it's beneficial. So but you're the yogi here. So okay, let's
Well, I have a
bring
question for you.
yes, yes.
What's your favorite pose?
Huh. uh I mean, you know what, the most challenging for
Ooh, okay.
me is it's downward dog. You know, like the downward dog is it's so challenging. Like again, uh I don't, this probably sounds cliche, but I'm a Virgo and perfectionist. So so we have a birthday coming, yeah.
Hey, when's your birthday?
September 14th.
I'm the third.
All right, happy birthday coming,
Happy
yeah.
birthday.
So anyway, I like I think like I try to like, the instructor tells you always like, make sure your hands are spread, right?
Yeah.
Your fingers are open. You're pressing down from the tip of your fingers all the way through your hand. Pull your elbows inwards, and like drop your chest as close to you can to your thighs, and lift your hips as high as you can. And again, like my heels are not touching. Well, that's okay. That's okay. They're not touching today. They probably touch tomorrow. They touched yesterday.
Right.
But today you're probably a
Yes.
little tighter because you went for a 6 mile run the night before. So your hamstrings are a little tight. But then all the pressure on the upper body and holding that position, it's like, and you're like checking every spot that the instructor is telling you to check. And that's, yeah, it hurts. It's painful, but at the same time it brings you to that, like, okay, I gotta breathe and make sure that I control. uh as for my favorite pose, um yeah, I can't think of any because I like them all. I think that they're all
That's a great
yeah.
answer.
Yeah, I like yoga a lot. I found it very it's it helps me grow every day, and every pose that we do is it's challenging. And like every new, like I it's like I can't turn my head when we're on a half moon uh
Oh
uh
yeah.
yeah, half moon pose. Like I have my right hand foot on the ground, my right hand is floating, my left hand is stacked on the other side, with my left leg pointing out, with the toes pulling towards my knee, but
Yes.
I can't look up. I gotta keep looking down, because if as soon as I turn my head, I lose balance.
Yeah.
And they're like, look up if you can. I'm like, no, I'm doing the best I can right now. This is a perfect pose as I'm looking down, so I can't look up. So
Yeah.
anyway, I've told you my two most challenging poses, I guess, but not my favorite. I think, as I said, they're all my favorite.
I don't
So
know. It sounds like depending on the day, like one might be a favorite and then the next day it's not so much.
yeah, I
That's
like
what's
it.
so I think it's great. It's a metaphor for everything ebbing and flowing. Like that's life.
Yes,
Your run today, I'll use running as an example. Your run today could be stellar. Tomorrow it could be terrible. And
yes,
instead of spending all this mental energy trying to figure out why was it so terrible, there, there comes a point in time where you just need to accept it wasn't so great. I'm gonna
right,
have a better run next time, or tomorrow's going to be a better day, or the next time I interact with that person, it's going to be a better interaction, like whatever it is. But I think accepting that things are going to ebb and flow, you're not going to have really great races, you're going to have really great races. And, instead of stacking the cards of comparison, like up against the previous, just
right.
take the cards in the hand and play with what you have. And next day you get a new deck of cards.
I mean, it also, this brings me also to, I remember last year I went to Finland for the 70.3 World Championship.
Yeah.
And like, I get to Finland 10 days before the race. I'm gonna sleep well. I'm gonna be all rested. I get to my Airbnb, and it's not the best Airbnb where I've stayed in my life. So I'm not sleeping well.
Ugh.
Time change it's doing a wreck with all my planning. I'm cooking in my Airbnb, and all my meals are perfect. Um, I meet people and we make good groups. And I'm looking at the forecast. The women's race is on Saturday, men's race is on Sunday. Women's race is nice and sunny, mid to high 60s, low 70s,
Yeah.
perfect, perfect conditions. Men's race the next day, mid to high 50s, rainy from the moment the gun goes off.
Ugh.
It's the only night that I slept through the whole week. Like I went with no sleeping or intermittent sleeping through the whole week. Like I'm waking up at 2 a.m., awake for 2 hours and not sleeping at all. I get to Saturday night and I sleep from 10 to 4. which
That's
is uh,
phenomenal,
it
right?
was
That
perfect.
doesn't
I'm like, this is
happen
how I should have been sleeping. Exactly. The night before
the
the
whole
race, that
time.
never happens. Yeah.
Right, right.
So anyway, it was all backwards. I get, and of course, one of the first side effects of non-sleeping is cramps.
Yeah.
So we're jumping off a ramp. It's probably like 4 feet high, 3 feet high from the water. And like I see the person in front of me. So you're in a line, of course, and you see people like you're either diving or jumping feet first. I'm like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? I'm going to dive. And it was a last minute decision. I dive. As soon as I push my feet off the board, cramp on both calves. I'm like,
Oh
boom, all right.
no.
I start swimming with cramps on my calves. And anyway, to make this the story short, like uh, it rained through the bike on and off. I see people like on the sides. The volunteer cars are all with bikes leaning in on the cars because there's people inside the cars with what's the word again? I just said it before. Um, they're called. Uh,
Uh,
I just said this word like a few
you
minutes ago.
did.
Hyper,
Oh,
uh, when you're cold, people are
the
called
hypothermia. Yes.
hypothermic. They're hypothermic in the cars, and like I'm like, and people walking their bikes at mile 40,
Oh,
and I'm like, what are
oh,
you doing? And I'm thinking to myself, you know what? It's not. It hasn't been a perfect day. It's not. The course was perfect for a PR. It was perfect for a PR, like rolling hills on the bike and
yeah,
very little hills on the run. And I'm like, it's just a tough day. I'm just gonna finish. I'm just gonna finish my race. That's what I'm gonna focus on now. I came here to finish this race. And well, I finished. It's my not my slowest half, but yes, my slowest half marathon off the bike.
ooh,
I walked probably the first 5 miles, just trying to get control of the cramps. But anyway, it was a fun experience. I went to Finland. It was amazing. It was
yeah.
beautiful. Yeah. Anyway, but this is not a podcast about me. This is about
But
you.
this is
So,
great though. So it also sounds
the,
like too, even in the midst of what might feel like a terrible situation, you're still able to look around and find some semblance of joy. And
yes,
it's that little sliver of joy, in my experience, that just really shines over the darker aspects that you might experience in a race, in your training, in your life. And, you know, the cliche is without joy or without sadness, there is no joy.
right.
But I think that joy can really overpower, um, as fleeting as it is.
I mean, to me, definitely the goal was to come back with my finishers medal, my
Yeah,
finishers T-shirt. You know, like all that stuff. Like I crossed the finish line, and that's where the mental training comes in. You know, like I have no formal training in the mental toughness of the sport. Like how do we overcome the barriers? But
yeah,
to me, triathlon training, I've been doing triathlons for more than 30 years, and it's been a lifestyle, and it's turned into one of the aspects uh, of my life as like, well, I changed jobs early in my early years, and then I moved all the way from Venezuela to San Francisco, straight from Venezuela to San Francisco, and well, got one divorce, have one kid from that marriage, then like, and it's standing up, got married again, and had another kid, and divorced again. So another two downfalls there, but standing up again, you know, like, and that's what happens in races, in training. You know, you
yeah.
set up a plan, you have a goal for you have a 12-16 week plan, and it's Ironman Arizona that's coming for me in November.
Ooh,
And so this is a race that was supposed to happen last year, but
Yeah.
it didn't happen because I had the AFib
Yeah.
issues at the end of the year as I was training. So I'm coming back. I figure out a way, and that's like I want you to talk to us about it. Like how do you do the mental performance? Like how do you train with your athletes on mental performance?
Great question.
Thank you. Yeah.
I think, well, it actually depends. So, mental performance wise, I will work with athletes beyond triathlon. So, I've worked with soccer, lacrosse, diving, swimming. High school, college, um, some professional level folks, and then also some other interesting sports like equestrian. I worked with an equestrian team in upstate New York. And that's interesting. Sure, you're dealing with not equipment like we would have a relationship with our bike, but they have a relationship with a horse. So that's just an interesting dynamic. So I've, definitely worked with a lot of different athletes, individual and group basis on mental performance, regardless of sport. But of course, because I have the most personal familiarity with long distance running and triathlon, the bulk of my folks that I do mental performance with are, kind of in those two buckets of athletes. And I think regardless of what your sport is, I like to get an idea of who you are as an individual. So I would ask, excuse me, a lot of questions, not just around, why are you engaging with me as a mental performance coach? Like, why are you here? What do you see as your barriers to performance? And then I want to know a little bit more in terms of, what's your home like life? Do you have a family? Where do you live? What is your job? Do you have other stressors in your life? What are some hobbies of yours that you have outside of, your particular sport? So I like to look at the whole picture, and I'll even dig into some other aspects that can impact your mental performance. So sleep is a huge thing. Depending on the age, more so with, teenagers and those in college, I'll ask about, screen time and what their social media consumption is. And I'm really interested in, nutrition. I'm not, a dietitian. I'm not a sports nutritionist. But I can appreciate, that we need to fuel our bodies and we need to fuel them well. So like, what does your diet look like? If you're, all about fast food and, you're binging TikToks until, 2 a.m,
Yeah.
and you wonder why, your 6 a.m, track workout with the team is garbage. Well, aside from you actually trying to do the workout, let's look at some of the other things in your life that might have an influence there. So I like to get a good picture. And then I'll dig into what they believe their biggest issue is. So for a lot of folks in the triathlon space, at least right now, what's being presented to me is there are a lot of people that are, again, really challenged with open water swimming. They are really great in the pool. They can knock out, yards and meters upon meters, but get them near the open water, and they're having panic attacks, or they're having trouble sighting, or whatever it is. It's the open water that winds up really creating a heck of a situation for them on race day. So kind of dig into some of those aspects, and it really becomes a relationship in which I'm challenging the athlete to be really honest with themselves. I really think that we have almost all of our own answers. It's just a matter of, can I be honest and vulnerable enough with myself to acknowledge, okay, I might not be working as hard on, sighting in the open water. So I really need to make a conscious effort to sight better in the water. Or, I'm really anxious and stressed out. Well, why am I really anxious and stressed out? And, we kind of dig into what are you thinking about? If you like, I want to know what your self-talk is like.
Yeah.
And then kind of then blowing that out into particular goals. So what is your goal? Is your goal to, PR in the swim, or is your goal to get through the swim? And those are two completely different tracks. And then what are the barriers to getting through the swim and barriers of PRing in the swim? And they might be the same techniques that we wind up, kind of talking through, but yeah, that's kind of how I
Can you
kick it
give
off
us
with
an
it.
example can you give us an example of what, like, just briefly? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, let's say
Um,
I think about, I'm I'm I think I'm a natural swimmer, right?
okay.
And I always, like, when I started doing triathlons, I would come out of the water and all the bikes were there. But then I come from the bike and all the bikes were there already, because I wasn't such a strong biker. So everyone was passing
Okay.
me afterwards. So good swimmer, not strong biker. Anyway, but, like, for example, a good, like, I lived in San Francisco for 16 years, and of course, swimming in the bay, you're always thinking about sharks. You
Sure.
can't, yeah, you can't see your hand when you put your hand in the water. You don't see the end of your arm. So you're always wondering what's in there, and that doesn't happen only in the bay. Like, if I go to swim here in Sacramento at Lake Natomas, I'll be thinking, like, what's under
Yeah.
that? Yeah. So how do you overcome these things, like these thoughts of fear, and like, what would you use as an example for this?
So sometimes it's a matter of just redirecting your focus. I think in the scenarios where people are concerned about wildlife, kind of acknowledging it's a valid concern
Yeah,
is
sorry, and don't want you to put it on the spot either,
no,
with
it's
this
fine.
question. Yeah, yeah, okay.
No, this is fine.
Yeah,
Um,
okay.
Sometimes validating the concern can be a little comforting, because there are, people who might even preface by saying, oh, I know it sounds crazy, but I'm afraid of sharks. I'm afraid there's going to be a shark in the water. Or I know it sounds really wacky, but I don't know what's under the water. Well, I don't think that sounds wacky. I think it's valid. That's their home. So I think, kind of normalizing their reaction to the unknown can be helpful. And that could be one way to move forward in the conversation. But it sounds like, in some cases, it's a matter of where focus is being directed. So the focus in, let's just say, the instance of what's under the water is on the unknown, where you can't control whether or not a fish is going to come up to you. You can't control whether or not there's going to be a weedy section unless you know that there's a
Right.
weedy section coming up. So, you just don't know. And a lot of anxiety and stress comes from focusing on the unknown. You're worrying about something that might not ever happen. And that just translates into you not focusing on the things that are in your control, and your performance will just naturally go down. You're so worried about something else. You're not in your own head in that positive way. You're not feeling the water. You aren't
Yes.
having a full body experience.
Correct.
You're not in the moment because you're in the other moment. You're trying to figure out what is coming when you're not focusing on what
This
is.
is so funny how it all translates to life also.
It
Thinking
does.
about the future, thinking about the past. It's like, just do what you need to do right now and control what you can control.
Yeah. And it's obviously a very simple thing to say. And I mean, I'm no, superhuman or anything. I think about the future a lot, and I think
Of
about the
course.
past a lot. But I know when I'm thinking about those things that I have my own process in which I can acknowledge, okay, well, that's not happening now. What's happening now is you are in the water, and your goal in this moment, your purpose in this moment is to move forward, and
Right.
you're going to move forward, and the things that you need to focus on are the things that are in your control. And maybe it's, I'm going to sight every fourth stroke, and maybe my other directional cue is I'm going to focus on bilateral breathing, or whatever your own training cues are
Right.
to keep you together. It's like a almost like a metronome of sorts. You're like, okay,
Yes.
breathe, stroke, sight, breathe, stroke, sight,
Yep.
whatever it is, you create a little bit of a rhythm. And that is how you can slip into that flow that, is everyone talks about.
Yep.
No one seems to be able to really
Grasp.
describe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that too. But I mean, and the reality is, just like everything else, it's going to go away. And instead of chasing that moment, it's stick with where you are. It'll happen again. It'll come up again. But
Yes.
yeah, I think a lot of things like, you were referencing before are related to lack of focus. We're very distracted, and we also require instant gratification. Um,
Yes.
and so if we're
Uh,
able to, I know, right? Like slow
yes.
things down a little bit and acknowledge that things are going to take time. So
the
maybe
the dopamine hit.
yeah, and I try and describe this to folks who, say, I just want the hack that's going to make this all go away. I want to be able to get in the water and not be stressed out. Well, that might not ever happen, but the frequency in which it occurs will most likely go down if you do these things. But you have to practice. I'm not going to ask you to step out the door and do an Ironman. That's not going to happen. You're
Right.
going to practice. You're going to train. Like you're going to have a build, and you're going to practice all of the things, and you're going to fine tune nutrition. And you can't go from, one training session to an Ironman. It's just, mental performance conditioning is the same. You can't just have one really great, 5-minute focused meditation and you're enlightened, and now there's, you're good to go. It doesn't work
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah. It's like the practice. It's so important. Like what you said, that resonated. The metronome.
Mm.
Like breathe, sight, four
Yes.
strokes. Breathe, sight, four strokes, and that like it's like reach, and you go like you visualize from the tip of your fingers when you're reaching that, like how that that down sweep goes of the swim stroke, and then like, okay, I'm making sure that I have the best form today. Those all those things, and same, you get out of the water, you take your wetsuit, you visualize how to get to wet out of the wetsuit.
Yes.
Then like you get on the bike, and it's like, okay, I'm pedaling at these RPMs, and okay, why is it not happening that I'm not going at these RPMs? Because, well, it's a climb, and I'm not producing the watts that I need to be producing. Well, because there's a lot of wind,
Yes.
and so like, don't like you. It's so many variables that we
Yeah.
get thrown at with triathlon, and at the same time, we have to have that mental strength to just go back to what the basic is. It's just staying in the things that you can control. This is awesome. I like this conversation that we're having. Um, okay, we're about like we're running out of time,
I
and
know.
yeah, I know, and it's a bummer. But let's okay. I want like I haven't heard about your business. Like
Yeah.
you're yeah. So I mean, master psychology, like with it's a yogi also. So like this is like the essence, right, of the sport, and like how long have you had your business? How did you become a coach? And yeah, so I have another
All right, I'm gonna
podcast.
sum this up. I'm gonna do my
Yeah,
best.
yeah,
So I've been certified at yoga for I don't know, I don't remember. I've been teaching for off and on for about 20 years.
good,
So
nice.
I, have a lot of different interesting specialties when it comes to yoga. And I that eventually, shifted into I'd love to run coach. So since 2016, I've been run coaching, and since about 2018, I included triathlon into that. And in 2019, I launched my business EnFlyte, and the pandemic hit, and it was just a really interesting time. But I still had athletes that I was onboarding. And at the time, my partner too, John, was coaching with another business. And then we started coaching with that business as well. And I kept my mental conditioning clients, on the side through EnFlyte. And it didn't make sense to me to have for, this holistic approach of we're pulling all of these really awesome services together and yet have us disjointed, as two different coaching entities. So pretty recently, John and I both came together. So we're now co-owners of EnFlyte, and he's a tri and a run coach, as well, and he's more of a data geek, than I am, like
Okay.
very much into the technology, really great with actually a lot of different technologies, and getting people up to speed, and really analyzing the data and doing some really great things to really shave just time off of athletes, disciplines, and really fine tuning some of those pieces. And my side of it is, yes, I absolutely appreciate the data, and I find it to be just one of many points, but I really love the softer aspect of it. So the things that you can't really, pick a drop down for. It's not a field, it's a story. Like, I want to know about people's stories, and how that influences and impacts their training. So, my coaching is basically, ours is a Venn diagram, but I'm more of the softer side, the storytelling, the conversational, aspect of things. So yeah, I might find that, I don't want you to run with a watch today. I want you to go on feel, and then I want you to tell me what that feel is. I can tell you what I want it to feel like, but I'm not
Right.
you. This is your journey, your experience. I'm just shining the flashlight for you. So, I'm a little bit of a guide, but I need your feedback to get you where you want to be.
I like that. And so what year did you guys start EnFlyte?
So together it's
Yeah.
been actually a couple of months. So it happened
Oh,
this year.
it's a
Yep.
brand new
We
business. Okay, as
yeah.
EnFlyte, but you guys were coaching to two different entities before.
Yeah. So
Okay,
I got the LLC in 2019, and it kind of hung out in the background for a little bit, but we're in full force this year.
nice,
Yeah.
nice. Well, congratulations. And first, your upcoming wedding, right? Your
Yes.
engagement, yes,
Yes.
and your big new family coming together also.
Yes.
Yeah, and ladies and gentlemen, Coach Christina Roberts. Yeah,
Thank you
this is
so much.
if people want to find you, tell us where your social media, your website, where can they find you?
Yes, we're enflyte.com, ENFLYTE.com.
Very
We're
good.
on
Very good.
Instagram, and it's at enflyte_coaching. We're also on Facebook as well, same handle. And you can email us at info@enflyte.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This was so good. I'm gonna throw you under the bus here. You showed
Do
up
it.
late, but you had your commitments. But yeah, hey, thank you for coming today. It was, it was worth it. And
Awesome.
anyway, yes, thank you again. All right,
Thank
and
you.
yes, don't go yet.
Okay.